Well, we've been talking a little bit about this very unique and important study that's being done by UCI. It's a groundbreaking study that's been going on for 12 or 13 years. We have Dr. Claudia Kawas here. Nice to have you on.
Nice to be here.
And as we were chatting beforehand, it is 12, 13 years this has been going on?
We took the first participants in January 1st, 2003.
That's amazing.
So it is amazing.
What was the background of this? Why did this start?
So actually the roots of the study go all the way back to the early 1980s when USC investigators sent a 14-page questionnaire to every single resident of Leisure World. And they got 14,000 of them back.
Wow.
Only in Leisure World, right?
Yes.
And they did some research with the results of that, but they did all of their research just by sending out mailings. And so when I came here in 14 years ago, I wanted to study the oldest old, and we decided to do more, to find all the people who had answered that questionnaire and bring them in and see how they were doing, if they were over the age of 90.
What is the primary focus of this? Obviously, you want to see how people are aging and how active they are and things like that, but what is the kind of the parameters that you're looking at?
Well, at this point, it's a huge study, and it's amazing the variety of things we're looking at. But our overarching goal is to try to understand how lifestyle factors as well as genetic factors influence how you age. People over the age of 90 are the fastest growing segment of the entire population.
Wow.
It's going to be 2% of the US population by 2050.
That's amazing.
It is incredible. I mean, it truly is a tsunami of aging. And yet we don't know very much. I mean, there was a time when Nixon would, every person who reached age 100 got a personally written birthday card from him.
Oh,
and,
really?
no president could do that now.
No.
We have several hundred people over the age of 100 that we've studied, actually. So we wanted to learn about the quality of life of these pioneers who make it to that age, so that the rest of us hopefully can age well too.
So are some of the things you're looking at would be their genetics, their lifestyle, maybe where they grew up, their environment, just that there's so many variables, aren't there?
Oh my gosh, I mean, we've been looking at a variety of things: diet, exercise, whether or not people took supplements, whether or not people engage in a lot of leisure activities and what kinds of leisure activities. But also we're bringing quite a bit of technology to study them now. And this year we started doing imaging. So we're doing PET scans to look in their brains, and we're doing MRIs to understand what's going on in their heads, and then we're asking them for their DNA, and then ultimately for many participants are willing to give us their brains. And that's been actually one of the things we've learned the most about.
Wow. In this time so far, has there been any preliminary conclusions or any pinpoint things that you've looked at where you can say there's a kind of a pattern here?
Oh,
or not yet?
Well, we've actually published quite a few papers. I mean, for starters, we looked at, of those 14,000 people, some of them made it into their 90s and 100s, and some of them died a lot younger, and we wanted to know, for example, if you took vitamin E in 1981, did you live longer than people who didn't take vitamin E in 1981? And the answer to that was no. Vitamins didn't seem to make a difference, although a good diet mattered. Whether or not you took supplements didn't seem to influence how long you lived. But how much you exercised influenced how long you lived. And how many activities you were doing, non-exercise activities a day.
Keeping your brain stimulated, yeah.
And people who kept their weight either normal or actually increased in weight to modest amounts lived longer than people who were very skinny.
Interesting.
It is. People who drank modest amounts of caffeine and modest amounts of alcohol actually lived longer than individuals.
Okay, so I've always been just a little bit over what I should be. I drink coffee, and I like bourbon, so I'm right in there.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. And I'm from Kentucky, so
There
I'm
we go.
impressed that I found a bourbon drinker.
Yes, exactly. How long do you foresee this going on, or is there even any endpoint?
Well, we get our funding primarily from the National Institute on Aging, and we have been very generously awarded now our third round of funding.
Great.
So we're hoping to go at least for 3 more years, and then depending on whether or not we get funding, we would like to continue past that. I think people have been surprised by our findings, so that's really been an important thing. I mean, one of the findings, for example, is that if you have Alzheimer's disease in your brain when you die at age 90, only half of the time do you have problems with your thinking.
Really?
So if we could figure out why the other half managed to have Alzheimer's disease in their brain and still think quite well, you know, that would be really, really
it certainly would.
important. And we found other really important things looking at the brain in relationship to lifestyle. So hopefully we'll keep going as long as we can convince people we're finding out important things.
Are there other research centers and universities around the country doing something similar to this?
So now we refer to people either over 85 or 90 as the oldest old. And there were relatively few studies of the oldest old when we started this 12 years ago, but now it's quite popular, yeah. There are studies around the world. We're banding together with some of the larger ones, for example, in Australia and Europe, to try to combine data sets and even look at bigger problems. But I'd say we definitely have one of the largest in the world and definitely one of the longest. We've enrolled more than 1,600 people now.
Wow.
And we're still counting.
And you're still looking for folks?
We are still looking. Initially, you couldn't come into the study unless you were one of the original Leisure Worldites from the 80s. But this year we opened it up to anyone over the age of 90 who is willing to come and let us examine them every 6 months and get x-rays done of their heads a couple of times and let us follow them and do other things with their blood pressure measurements and what all. Anyone who's willing, we'd really love to have them, and we have an open enrollment period that actually just started.
All right, that's great. Do you also look at their genetics as far as going back in their history? Nowadays we can send our DNA to Ancestry.com or any one of those, and they come up with this sort of a timeline of where your ancestors come from. Does any of that play into it, or any pattern there that you see?
So most of the people in the study, because they lived in Leisure World in the 1980s, tend to be of one primary ethnic group. Mostly white, a lot of European and Eastern European. And in everyone who comes into the study, we ask them if they will give us a detailed family history about where their parents and grandparents were from and how long they might have lived, and then if they'll give us a sample of their DNA to go with it. So at this point we have about 1,000 DNAs, and we're about to start studies on the family history component.
That's great.
It is.
The benefit of this is just remarkable, and the people that participate, I think it would even be fun for them because they're going to gain so much knowledge in this, and I think it's a great program.
Well, we do have fun with the participants, and they're really amazing, and they make it fun for us. So
we have the information on the screen, and I'm going to give you the website as well. I just put the email there, study90@uci.edu, and the phone number's there. But the website is, I've said this before, opposite of the email. It's 90study.org, and so that'll get you folks started. 949-768-3635. If you forget that, we have the information here, and it's also been put out, I think, by our recreation department as well, the information.
yeah. We have a lot of information in some of our papers that have been published in the science literature, and also links to the 60 Minutes double segment that they did on the study last year. So
great. It's been a pleasure having you here. I think
Thank
this is
you.
a remarkable study, And it's being done in your own backyard, basically, by UCI. So this is great. Looking forward to hearing more and more about it, and maybe get some results along the way. Would be great.
Thank you for having me.
All right, maybe we'll share bourbon sometime. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment.